This is a mushroom's peak. Azure Ascends, trip report by Jez, posted to arrowhead.org on November 22nd, 2009. I have always called myself a spiritual person. I do not belong to any one church or doctrine, but I keep a deep respect for every living thing. I feel that the wind, the stones, the trees, even the smallest blade of grass, each carries a kind of breath. That belief has always guided the way I move through the world, and it also shaped the night I spent at the local Renaissance Festival. The festival had just finished its season. The last day of performances, the final jousts, the last crowds were thinning. The sun had set early, and the sky was a heavy gray, the clouds low and thick as if they were about to burst. It was around 10 o'clock in the evening when I found myself standing near the edge of the main field, watching a group of jousters prepare for a ritual fire. The air smelled of wood smoke and damp earth, and a chill had begun to settle into my bones. I had not planned to take any substance that night. I had come to the festival to enjoy the music, the crafts, and the simple pleasure of being among people who liked the same old stories. I was not a regular user of psychedelics, and I rarely smoked anything. I was there simply to be present. As I was watching the jousters, a fellow festival goer, a man I had spoken to earlier about the weather and the upcoming fire, stepped toward me. He carried a small paper bag that seemed to rustle with something inside. He said he had a few blue mushrooms that he felt obligated to hand out. He asked me if I would like one. I hesitated for a moment. The idea of eating a mushroom that might change my mind was foreign to me. I looked at the bag, saw a single dry mushroom poking out, its cap a faded denim blue, its stem bone white and thin. It looked small, almost insignificant. I thanked him, took the mushroom, and placed it in my mouth without thinking much further. The mushroom was dry, a little crumbly, and it broke apart as I chewed. I swallowed it and felt the faint taste of earth and a hint of bitterness. I did not notice any immediate effect. I waited, watching the fire that the jousters had lit. The flames rose high, bright orange against the dark sky, and the heat brushed my face. The fire crackled, sending sparks up into the night. I felt a wave of contentment wash over me, a simple happiness that seemed a little brighter than usual. I stood there for about 20 minutes, feeling the warmth of the fire on my skin and listening to the low murmur of the crowd that lingered near the blaze. 45 minutes after I ate the mushroom, I still felt no change in my perception. I assumed the dose was low, that perhaps I would not feel anything at all. The jousters began to burn their broken lances, the wood snapping and hissing as it fed the fire. The blaze grew, and from a distance it looked as if a building were on fire. I felt a strange elation, a lightness in my chest, but nothing beyond that. When the fire began to die down, I thought that my experience was over. I decided to head back to my tent to finish packing my things. I turned away from the heat and began walking across the festival grounds. The sky, still heavy with clouds, started to release a thin rain. The first drops fell on my face, cold and sharp. In that instant, something shifted. The rain seemed to open a door inside me. The joy I had felt earlier surged, and I laughed, a carefree sound that echoed in the empty space around me. I sank to my knees in the soft earth, the ground cool and damp beneath me. I lifted my head and raised my palms to the sky, allowing the rain to fall over me. The water soaked my hair, ran down my face, and dripped onto my clothes. I felt refreshed, as if the rain were washing away something I had not known was there. I shook my hair, droplets flying, and stood again. The night, which had seemed dreary and cold, now felt full of possibility. Near the edge of the festival grounds there was a small garden, a tucked-away space with a vine-covered trellis at its entrance. I walked toward it, my steps slow, feeling each footfall on the wet ground. As I entered the garden, the world seemed to expand. The plants looked more alive than I had ever seen them. The leaves shivered as if breathing, the flowers turned their heads toward me, and I sensed a kind of awareness in each stem. In the petals and leaves I began to see faces, tiny expressions, fleeting figures that seemed to be made of light. It was as if the plants were trying to speak without words. I felt humbled, and I greeted each one in turn, my voice soft, my tone respectful. In response, images and feelings rose in my mind. A rose gave me a sense of deep love, a fern sent a feeling of patience, a vine whispered about growth and reaching out. The exchange was not spoken, but it was clear enough that I understood the intent. A presence seemed to fill the garden, larger than any single plant, a sense of something that watched over all of them. A phrase entered my mind without any effort. Nothing is too small to be worthy of consideration. The words resonated, and I felt a wave of reverence for the living things that surrounded me. My attention narrowed to the small details, yet at the same time my sense of the universe widened. I realized that every blade of grass, every insect, every stone had a role, a spirit, a voice. I moved slowly through the garden, inhaling the scent of wet earth and rain-kissed leaves. The air was cool, carrying the smell of pine and moss. My lungs filled with that fresh smell, and I felt a deep connection to the ground beneath my feet. I thought to myself that even if this were all I experienced tonight, I would be content. I felt blessed by the simple act of being present among these living things. When I reached the exit of the garden, I paused. I breathed in the rain-scented air, feeling the wetness on my skin, the droplets still clinging to my hair. The world seemed to make sense in a way it never had before. I felt a pull toward the forest that lay beyond the festival grounds, a darker area of trees that rose like silent guardians. The garden had shown me a small, intimate world. Now the forest promised something larger, something older. I stepped out of the garden onto the path that led toward the edge of the festival. The rain continued, a steady patter on the ground, on the canvas of the tents, on the metal roofs of the stalls. The lights of the festival glowed dimly through the falling water, creating a soft halo around each structure. The sound of the rain mixed with the distant crackle of the dying fire, creating a rhythm that seemed to pulse through my body. As I walked, the darkness grew thicker. The trees loomed, their trunks thick and black against the sky. Their branches reached out like arms, swaying gently in the wind. The forest felt alive, as if it were breathing. I felt small, timid, yet also curious. The absence of the usual festival crowd made the place feel more intimate, more raw. The night air smelled of pine resin and wet bark, a scent that filled my nostrils with a sense of ancientness. I thought of myself as a messenger, a human stepping into a place that was not meant for me. I felt an urge to express my humanity, to let the forest know that I was not a threat. I began to hum a simple melody, a tune that I often sang when I felt calm. The notes rose and fell, carrying hope in the first part and a hint of caution in the second. The sound seemed to echo among the trees, to be absorbed by the night. I continued along the winding path, the ground soft with fallen leaves and mud. The rain fell harder now, each drop striking the canopy above and creating a soft drumbeat. My clothes grew heavier, the wool cloak I wore protecting my shoulders but allowing the rest of my body to become damp. I could feel the chill seeping into my bones, but the music I sang kept me from slipping into fear. The forest around me seemed to watch, to listen. I felt a presence that was larger than the trees, something that seemed to be a collective awareness of the woods. It was not hostile, but it was powerful. I sang my melody as a greeting, as an offering, hoping that the ancient woods would understand my intention. The sound of my voice mingled with the rain, and for a moment I felt a sense of balance, as if the music were a bridge between my human self and the living forest. I reached a small clearing where a narrow bridge spanned a shallow marsh. The water below reflected the dim lights of the festival tents, turning them into soft, moving glows. I paused on the bridge, feeling the wood beneath my feet, the rain dripping from the edges of the bridge onto my face. The world seemed to hold its breath at that moment. I took a deep breath, inhaling the cool, wet air, and let the melody fade into silence. In that pause, I sensed that the experience was moving into a deeper stage. The garden had opened my eyes to the spirits of small plants, and now the forest was inviting me to listen to a larger, older chorus. I felt both excitement and a little apprehension. The rain continued, the night remained dark, and the forest stretched out before me, full of hidden voices and unseen eyes. I stood on the bridge, feeling the water below, the rain on my skin, the music in my heart, and I sensed that I was on the edge of something profound. The journey was only beginning, and I felt ready to step forward into the deeper woods, to see what else the night would reveal. I step off the wooden planks and let my feet find the soft, damp earth of the forest floor. The rain has not stopped. Each drop lands on my skin like a tiny drumbeat. The scent of wet moss and loam rises to my nose and fills my lungs. I feel the coolness of the ground through the soles of my shoes, and I notice that the mud clings to the edges of my boots, pulling at the fabric of my trousers. The darkness around me is thick, but it is not empty. It feels as though the night itself is breathing, inhaling and exhaling in slow, measured pulses. I move forward slowly, each step deliberate. The path is a narrow line of crushed leaves and broken twigs, winding between trunks that rise like ancient pillars. Their bark is slick with rain, and the water runs down in thin ribbons that catch the faint light from the sky. I pause for a moment and place my hand on the bark of a large oak. The surface is rough, yet there is a subtle vibration that I can sense through my fingertips. It is as if the tree is alive in a way that I have never felt before, sending a low, steady hum that matches the rhythm of the rain. The hum grows louder as I walk deeper. It is not a sound that my ears can hear, but a feeling that settles in my chest. My heart beats in time with it, and I sense a pattern that repeats itself in the leaves, the water, the wind. I feel a wave of gratitude rise within me, and I let out a soft sigh that is carried away by the wind. My breath becomes deeper, and I notice that the air feels thicker, as if it is saturated with something beyond oxygen. A sudden flash of light catches my eye. It is not a flash of lightning, but a gentle glow that seems to emanate from the canopy above. The light is greenish, like the inner part of a leaf, and it spreads outward in a slow, pulsing circle. As the light expands, I see shapes moving within it. Silhouettes of birds, of insects, of small animals that I cannot name. They glide through the glow as if they are part of the light itself. I watch them for several breaths, feeling a sense of belonging that I have never known. The glow intensifies, and the forest around me seems to dissolve into a sea of color. The trees become transparent, their trunks turning into columns of amber and violet. The leaves turn into fluttering ribbons of gold, each one moving independently, yet all moving together. I feel my body become light, as if it is no longer bound to the ground. I am aware of a pressure at the base of my spine, like a gentle push that lifts me upward. I do not fear this sensation. Instead, I welcome it. In this state, I hear a chorus of voices. They are not spoken words, but tones that resonate in my mind. Some are high and bright, like a child's laugh. Others are low and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. The voices seem to come from the trees, from the rain, from the very soil beneath my feet. They speak to me in images: a river carving a canyon, a seed sprouting into a sapling, a storm breaking over the horizon. Each image is accompanied by a feeling of purpose, of continuation, of connection. One particular image stays with me longer than the others. I see a small acorn falling from a branch, landing on the forest floor, being covered by a layer of leaves, and then, months later, pushing through the earth to become a new tree. The image repeats, and each repetition adds a new layer. The acorn is nourished by the rain, protected by the shade of other trees, eventually growing tall and providing shelter for birds. The feeling that accompanies this image is one of deep reverence. I feel that I am part of this cycle, that my own breath is linked to the breath of the forest. The chorus of voices shifts. A new tone emerges, slower, more deliberate. It feels like a question. I sense an invitation to respond, to give something back. I think of the music that has always been a part of my life, the strings and the chords that I have played for years. I hum a simple melody, low and steady, letting it rise and fall with the rhythm of the rain. As I hum, the forest seems to listen. The greenish glow brightens, and the shapes within it dance in time with my humming. I feel a warmth spread through my chest, as if the forest is accepting my offering. The humming continues, and the forest responds. The trees sway, though there is no wind, and the leaves rustle in a way that matches the cadence of my voice. I notice that the rain has changed its pattern. It now falls in a gentle, steady stream that sounds like a soft drum roll. The drum roll syncs with my humming, creating a unified sound that fills the entire space. I feel my mind expand, as if the boundaries between me and the forest are dissolving. I no longer see myself as a separate person. I am a part of the whole. Time loses its meaning. Minutes feel like seconds, and seconds feel like minutes. I am aware of a deep, steady pulse that seems to be the heartbeat of the forest. I feel my own pulse aligning with it, each beat echoing through my body. The feeling of unity is overwhelming, but not frightening. It is comforting, like being held in a warm embrace. I let the feeling wash over me, allowing it to fill every corner of my awareness. After what feels like an eternity, the glow begins to soften. The colors fade slowly, returning the forest to its ordinary, rain-soaked state. The voices become faint, like distant echoes. The humming in my throat settles into a gentle breath. I stand still for a long moment, feeling the damp earth beneath my feet and the rain on my skin. The forest is still alive, but the extraordinary sensations have receded, leaving behind a quiet, lingering sense of connection. I continue walking, now moving at a slower pace. The path leads me out of the dense trees and toward the clearing where I had paused earlier. The bridge over the marsh is still there, its wooden planks slick with water. I step onto it, feeling the coldness of the wood through my shoes. The water below ripples gently, reflecting the faint light of the clouds. I pause again, looking down at the water. The surface is covered with tiny droplets that glisten like a field of stars. I watch them for a while, feeling a calm that settles deep within me. The rain begins to ease, and the clouds start to thin. A faint, pale light appears on the horizon, hinting at dawn. I feel a shift in my body. The intense sensations of the peak are fading, and a gentle fatigue settles in my muscles. My limbs feel heavy, and my mind begins to quiet. The vivid images that filled my thoughts start to dissolve into simpler, more ordinary reflections. I notice that my clothes are soaked through, clinging to my skin. The wool cloak I wear is damp, but it still offers some protection from the chill. My hair is dripping, and small rivulets run down my face. I feel cold, but the cold does not frighten me. It is simply another sensation, like the rain or the wind. I become aware of the need to find shelter, to warm my body before the night fully settles. I turn back toward the festival grounds, where the tents and the small pub tent stand near the entrance. The ground is muddy, and each step leaves a dark imprint. I hear faint voices in the distance, muffled by the rain, but I cannot make out the words. I feel a slight unease, as if I am moving from a place of deep communion back into a world that is ordinary and noisy. Yet I also feel a sense of gratitude for the journey I have just taken. When I reach the pub tent, I see a few of the other festival goers huddled together, laughing and drinking. Their faces are lit by the soft glow of lanterns and the smell of spiced ale mixes with the scent of wet earth. I am still wet, and I can feel the eyes of some of them glance at me, perhaps noticing my damp condition. I greet them with a nod, and they return a brief smile. Their conversation is easy, but I find it difficult to engage fully. My mind is still partially in the place I have just left, and the words they speak feel like distant echoes. I find a quiet corner near the edge of the tent, away from the heat of the fire. I sit down on a low wooden stool, and I pull my cloak tighter around my shoulders. I take a deep breath, inhaling the mixture of rain-filled air and the faint aroma of ale. I feel a subtle tremor in my hands, as if the lingering energy from the peak is still resonating through my body. I close my eyes and let the sensation settle. The rain has stopped completely now. The sky is a deep indigo, and a thin veil of clouds hangs low. The stars are beginning to appear, faint points of light that seem to watch over the world. I open my eyes and look up, feeling a sense of awe at the vastness above me. The forest, the bridge, the glowing light, the voices, all of it feels like a memory that is both vivid and distant. I think about the images that were shown to me, the acorn, the river, the seeds, the chorus of tones. I realized that these images were not random. They were reflections of my own concerns, my own hopes. The feeling of being part of something larger gave me a sense of purpose that I have not felt in a long time. I feel a quiet resolve forming within me, a desire to honor the connections I have witnessed by acting more gently toward the earth and the living things around me. The fatigue in my body grows. My muscles ache from the long walk and from the lingering intensity of the experience. I decide to return to my tent to rest. I stand, feeling the cold bite at my fingertips, and I make my way back through the festival grounds. The path is now illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns, and the mud squelches under my boots. I can hear the occasional laugh of a friend, the clink of glasses, the murmur of conversation. The world feels both familiar and slightly altered, as if a thin veil has been lifted.